give me one shot here on a blue chip stock, believe me, Kevin, the only problem you're gonna have is that you didn't buy more.
Nobody knows if the stock is going to go up, down, sideways, or in circles.
What's going on, NBA draft fans? Your boys are back. The Wolves of Ball Street, the Draft Tack NBA Draft Podcast. My name is Corey Tulba. I am here, as always, with my co-host, Garbage Time, Albert, Gim, and Albert. Today's a very, very fun episode because we got a special guest. Yoda's in the building, y'all. We got Rashad Philips of Sports Talk 2319. Shad, what's going on, man?
Appreciate you. Thanks for having me, fellas. It's a fantastic time of year for all of us, man. So I'm excited. Thanks for having me, though.
Yes, sir. And I'm really excited to have you on this episode today. I know Albert is as well, because we're talking about one of, I think, the more intriguing prospects in this draft class. Somebody that I think has a very mixed fan base. You know, there are some people that have gotten to be completely out. There are some people that have held on to their draft stock. And I'm talking about the G League Ignite's Jaden Hardy.
Oh,
So we're gonna get into it today.
Okay.
All right. I'm gonna break down Mr. Hardy, his measurements right now. So
yeah.
G League Ignite guard, 19 years old. He'll be 19 on draft night.
Yeah.
6'4", 190, reported 6'9" wingspan. 19 points per game, 4.2 rebounds, 3.6 assists, 3.3 turnovers, 0.2 blocks, 1.3 steals. Field goal percentage, 38% from the field. 3-point percentage, 31%. Free throw percentage, 80.2. Stock price, preseason. And this is where things get interesting, right? Because preseason,
Yeah.
Jaden Hardy was ranked number 3 on ESPN. He was ranked number 3 on Basketball News, 3 on Bleacher Report, 3 on Tankathon, 3 on number 9 on SB Nation. Average stock price of 4.2. He came in as the number 3 overall prospect on the Draft Act IPO. Currently, though, ESPN has him at 24. The Athletic has him at 22. Tankathon has him at 24. Basketball News at 19. Bleacher Report at 19. Sports Illustrated, 28. The Ringer has him at 12. No ceilings. We have him rounding out the lottery at 14. That's an average stock price of 20.25. So we've seen a drop in stock. This is not uncommon. Patrick Baldwin Jr., Peyton Watson, Caleb Houston.
Right.
A lot of these prospects come in.
Yeah.
Not everybody's situation is the same. Things happen. So I ask you, we'll start with you, Rashad. Is Jaden Hardy's stock price too high, too low, or just right currently at about 20.25?
I think it's low. I do, because here's why. We got to take into account he just played professional basketball for a year.
That's right.
He didn't play college. Like, I truly believe Jaden Hardy would have dominated college basketball because he's a jump shooter. Jump shooters dominate college basketball. Period.
Right.
Guys that can stretch the floor and make 3-point shots dominate. I think Jaden Hardy would have been like a bigger version of like guys like Curry, Jimmer Fredette, like guys like that can just knock down high volume threes, like 3 or 4 3-pointers made a game. He would have been that type of player at the college level. So you put Jaden on like a Kentucky, like one of these type of teams. Even a Michigan or something, like just imagine what he would do because of his jump shooting. Now at the pro level, you got to get adjusted to a lot of things outside of the game, like getting acclimated to professional coaches, holding yourself accountable opposed to a college coach holding you accountable. Like there's a lot of factors that went into that. So the season that he had as a professional, for me, it keeps him in the top 7 for me because he did it as a professional.
Correct.
Now, I mean, that's just how I look at it.
It's a different game from college too. The rules are different. You're not playing defense the same way.
No.
The paint's not packed necessarily. You can't just sit and park under the hoop. The rules are different. There are things that you're learning coming from, especially with Jaden Hardy. And this is something I wanted to add. I'll let Albert go with where he thinks, and then I'm going to ask you some questions.
Sure.
No, I 100% agree with everything that Rashad just said. Just because for me, dude, you watch the way that his season started, right? And that's when he really started to fall down boards because people were saying, what's wrong with the shooting numbers? What's going on with the turnovers? Blah, blah, blah. The thing that I absolutely loved about Hardy, and I have him number 8 on my board, the reason why I still love him to death, I had him number 1, dropping to number 8, but he's still up there for me. And the reason why is because I felt like the G League coaches really challenged him to work on the things that he wasn't good at.
Correct.
Right. Or the things that he needed to grow in. Right. You watch his playmaking from the beginning of the year till now, and he's made great strides. If you watch his last 3-4 games and you watch the pick and roll ESP connection that he had with Amir Johnson, that was one of the main things that I wrote down in my notes. I was like, this is an insane amount of growth from Hardy that, to be honest, I didn't know he was going to be able to show. But some of the passes that he was throwing at Amir Johnson, and you see Amir Johnson react to it. This is a guy who played in the league for a very long time. He's catching these passes, finishing with layups, and he's pointing at Hardy like, hey, dude, that's an NBA level pass, you know? And so for me, I think Rashad, like, I 100% agree that the level of play was different, but also what he was asked to do, it felt like he was asked to do things outside of his comfort level to prepare him for the next level, which is the NBA. And so if you consider how he took all that on and continued to develop throughout the year, you look at his stats, the last 5-6 games of the season, you're like, oh, he's really starting to develop here, and it gets you excited to see what he's going to be like on the next level. And then we're going to get into more deeper things with him, but that alone, I was like, yeah, that stock price is way too low for me, and I just cannot, no matter how hard I may have tried, can't drop him out of my top 10 right now.
No, you can't do it.
The other thing with the G League Ignite is it's not as easy to watch their games for people. You know, that they're not on ESPN all the time.
Right.
Sometimes they are. You can find some of their games on YouTube sometimes, but it's actually like a struggle. Like you have to like finagle the YouTube app and click through links. It's like, so when you're talking about, you know, maybe some of these outlets, I'm sure these guys are watching the games as well. I think there's a little bit of groupthink sometimes where you see a low ranking, you feel like you need to drop that down. I think the general like draft Twitter space, a lot of people probably aren't watching as many Ignite games as as Duke. So I think that's another thing that has kind of hurt his stock. It's the availability, it's the mystery. You just don't. Jan Montero, same thing with the overtime elite. You know, I know for a fact you don't even see conversation about him on draft Twitter. So I know people aren't really watching him too much. But I want to ask you something. You said he went from high school to the pros.
Yeah.
That's not new, right? There's a long history of people doing that.
Correct.
But what is new? And I say this personal experience. I've been coaching varsity basketball for almost 10 years.
Yeah.
The last few years, from a developmental standpoint, I feel like have been very challenging for high school players. Going through the pandemic, having inconsistent opportunities to play high-level basketball. Now, Jaden Hardy, obviously, he's not like, you know, some random public school kid who will struggle to find a gym to work out in. But in his state, you know, I'm pretty sure he bypassed his senior year for high school. So that's a very important time for him. He's not playing. He doesn't have as many opportunities playing AAU. The whole world shut down, right? He didn't have that opportunity during these very important developmental times. And a lot of what he's doing, right, it's just the natural talent. And in a normal circumstance, he might have been, you know, playing high-level AAU. Maybe he joins the FIBA team. He didn't play the FIBA U19s, right? You see how much that helped Johnny Davis, how much it helped Jaden Ivey, some of those guys.
Yeah.
So I think he missed out on a lot of developmental opportunities due to circumstances that aren't necessarily under his control. And you add that to the fact that now he's making that extra jump to playing professional hoops. And you can speak from personal experience. You played in this league, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually the first guard drafted in the G League history.
So
makes me feel old, but
like, tell me, what's it like playing in that league? Right, everybody's hungry, right?
Yeah, it's different, man. It's not like college. It's not like high school. It's not like pickup. It's these are grown men, right? These are grown men trying to fight for jobs. I mean, I had teammates with like, you know, with 3 kids, you know, families, right? I'm 22 years old. I'm just trying to, you know, so it's different. So we have to take in account when we're looking at these draft draft prospects the road they're taking, right? Like that's a road less traveled that he took. You know, he could have. I think college would have been the easy route for Jaden. I thought it would have been an easy route. Imagine him right now on Duke.
Well, he'd help with Duke spacing. I'll tell you that. I saw him last week.
See what I'm saying? Like the narrative changes if you put Jaden Hardy on Duke. He's a top 5 player just because you put him at Duke. Yeah. Now he's dropping to 25 on some people's boards because he took a road less traveled. I don't think that's fair. So when I evaluate players, I try to evaluate the individual skill.
Right.
And I try to take that individual skill and place it at the highest level. So you have to imagine Jaden Hardy with the Detroit Pistons. How would he fit? He will fit perfectly with Cade Cunningham at the dual forward, looking to make plays, and Jaden is not attracting the top defenders and making shots. Like you have to take that in account. And I think a lot of draft Twitter or whatever you want to call it, they don't take an account of the individual skill set that is transferable.
Right.
Jaden Hardy has a transferable skill set.
Right. And one of the things that I think has hurt the G League Ignite this year versus last year, where I think like Jalen Green benefited from it. Last year, they had Bobby Brown and Jarrett Jack running the point guard position.
It was easy for them.
Right.
They didn't have to go in and make those high level decisions that you're not used to at that speed, right? Because Bobby Brown is a legend overseas. Jarrett Jack is a long, how many years did he play in the league? These guys were able to guide them into being the players, right? So Scoot Henderson, tremendous talent, right?
For
Unbelievable.
Sure. For sure.
But he's 17. He's 17.
Still a kid.
He's not the player he's going to be when he's 26.
Correct.
Dyson Daniels, I love Dyson Daniels.
Yes.
But he's 18. These are all kids trying to figure it out together. So I think that you have that. You also have, and look, I don't know if there's any hardcore empirical evidence, but I know a lot of people theorize that the bubble shooting in a gym without, spectators has helped a lot of players, with their percentages.
There's some truth to that.
Yeah, I believe it. I mean, 1 year, small sample, whatever. But last year, the G League Ignite, when they played their games, they played in that Orlando bubble themselves.
There's some truth to that.
So I do think that there are some circumstances this year that has made it tougher on these G League Ignite products, and I think that I think we have to take that into account. Now let's talk about his shooting, right? Because look, I'll be honest. I found out about Jaden Hardy a few years ago because you posted a clip of him. And I was like, it took me one clip. I was like, this kid looks like Dame Lillard and Jason Tatum, like the guard version combined, right? Like his shooting was insane. His range was bordering on absurd.
Yeah.
It hasn't translated percentage wise this year, right? What do you think is the reason that the shots haven't fallen like you would expect it to with a shooter as smooth as him?
With Jaden, right?
Yeah.
Well, again, the adjustment to playing against bigger, faster, grown men. Like, he's a kid playing against a 24-year-old, right? Like, that's a huge age gap.
Big time.
Yeah. So playing against grown men, getting used to the speed of the professional game. It's just I don't think people really understand like how fast these guys are and how strong they are and how quick they close. That I think that was just the percentages. Percentages never bother me with shooters at all. At all. Like and I, like I was a great shooter. I had moments where I couldn't hit the side of a barn, right? I couldn't throw a rock in the ocean. But with shooters, you have to trust they will figure it out over time.
Yes.
This is a very small sample size of Jaden's percentages. We cannot base his entire career off him playing 26 games in the G League and say, well, he's only a 38. I look at Jaden as a a 39, 38% three-point shooter at the NBA level once he gets comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine Jaden playing with a Trae Young in Atlanta, right? When Trae's drawing all that attention and he's kicking it out. Look at Kevin Huerter and those guys. Those guys are shooting open shots.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Jaden Hardy not going to keep missing those type of shots. Trust me.
Yeah.
Because he's a shooter by nature.
I actually want to ask you, what do you think his ideal role is in the NBA? Because when I watch him, and look, I had him number 1 on my board coming in. I thought you look at the trend, Jalen Green, Anthony Edwards, like that kind of shooting guard. Teams really value that, right?
Yeah.
As I watched the games, my evaluation changed a little bit.
Yeah.
To where I don't know if he has that same on-ball equity as those guys. And
I agree.
I think that the things that I really liked that stood out is how he moves off the ball, how he gets open, how he's running off screens, coming out and pin downs. When he's playing 0.5 basketball, getting the ball off a screen, giving it up, relocating. That's the kind of stuff that I thought he looks like, he's one of the best in the class at. It's not necessarily stuff that shows up on a stat sheet.
Yeah.
And I feel like he looks a lot more comfortable right now doing that kind of stuff than creating. Now, like Albert said, I mean, he's done a phenomenal job of looking more comfortable with that.
Yes.
He's no longer barreling into 3 guys in the paint because now he knows where the rotations are coming from, and he knows that he's either got to pull up, kick. So he's gotten better, and I think that trend is going to continue. But I really think that, like you said, you put him around a guy like Trae or a guy like Cade, where he doesn't have to handle the ball, make those decisions all the time. That's the kind of role I think I want to see him in. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know if, NBA teams are smart. I'm sure, they're seeing a lot of the same things.
They know what to do with them. So here's my thing.
Yeah.
And hear me out, Albert. Hear me out, guys. Here's Jaden Hardy's NBA comp. Okay. I'm gonna give it to you guys first on your show.
Okay. All right.
I had it tucked away for a while, but I'll give it to you guys.
Exclusive.
He's Buddy Hield.
Have that in my notes. We do a segment on if you bought stock in this prospect, who may you have bought stock in previously. Buddy Hield's my guy.
Buddy Hield. He's Buddy Hield.
Yep. And Buddy came in. He was 24 when he came to the league, right? Played in college a long time, a little bit more ready, right? But you see the path that Jaden can get to.
He's Buddy Hield, and that's a compliment.
Mm-hmm.
Like
he's a bucket. Buddy Hield gets buckets in the NBA.
He's a bucket. Mm-hmm. He's worth $100 million.
Yeah.
Like
right.
I'll take that comp.
Yeah. Look, somebody wants to call me Buddy Hield and throw me $100 million. I'll take it. I'm not gonna pass it up. You can do whatever you want for $100 million.
Rashad, I think the Buddy Hield comp is fantastic. Like I both of you guys, I didn't even think of that. I've had a comp that I've been saying all season long. Now, once again, my comp is not a 1-for-1. I really do believe that they're like a little essences from his game that relate to this player. Because when I look at Hardy, the thing that impresses me the most is his frame. Like, I love how this kid is a strong physical guard.
Broad shoulders.
Exactly. The shoulders are gigantic. And when I watch him play, I'm like, oh, he's only going to get bigger and stronger. And once he gets his grown man strength, like I think when he attacks the rim, when he attacks the rim, he goes up there with physicality. And he's going up there to either draw a foul or hurt somebody. And I love that. So for me, the person that I can't shake, because he was my absolute favorite guard in the 2000s, was Gilbert Arenas. And the reason why I compare him, now I'm not saying he's going to be Gilbert, but I like that comp because of the physical nature that Gilbert had. And if Gilbert played in today's NBA, he would be taking those parking lot range threes all the time. And then of course with Gilbert, he had the mid-range game. He wasn't going to be like, he wasn't like a pure point guard at all.
He's a hybrid guard.
Exactly. He's a hybrid guard. So when I watch Hardy, I'm like, okay, if Hardy keeps going at this trajectory with the body that this kid has, and I really like his legs. I think he has really strong legs, and that's why he can shoot from so deep. I felt like Gilbert could be like that 1% ceiling for him potentially. Now, I love the Buddy Hield one, but that's just where my mind keeps going to.
So I see that. So I played against Gilbert. Guy, I'm old, right? So me and Gilbert were in Golden State together in summer league. So I got a chance to play against Gilbert a lot. here's the difference between Gilbert and Jaden. And what Gilbert is more an on-ball guy.
Yeah.
Like Gilbert's
okay.
not an off-ball guy at all.
The handle is tighter.
Yeah, way like his handle's crazy.
Yeah.
But they're built alike. Actually, Jaden is taller than Gilbert. Gilbert's like 6'3" and some change. Jaden's more closer to 6'5".
Okay.
So I like that trajectory, like you said, and I know you're basing that comp off of the decision making he was making when the ball was in his hands.
Correct.
If he can improve on that,
right,
he could get to that trajectory. So I get what you're saying with that, but you have to think about NBA teams, right? If we're running the Detroit Pistons, right? We're drafting Jaden Hardy not to put the ball in his hands.
correct. Yeah.
We don't want him to be Gilbert Arenas here. We got Grant Hill already here. Cade is Grant Hill.
Yeah.
Jaden, you're going to be our Buddy Hill. We don't need you to be Gilbert Arenas. So it really depends if we're the Atlanta Hawks, right? We don't need Jaden to be Gilbert Arenas. I need you to be Buddy Hill. I need you knocking down. I need you hitting 39% from three when Trey is getting doubled on these ball screens, right? So I really believe that the smart NBA team will get the most out of Jaden if they play him more like a Buddy Hill.
Got it.
I agree with you 100%. And I'll say I saw him live in January. Probably the worst game he had ever played. It was a game where he went 0 for 11. But, when I go see games and I'm watching stuff, I'm looking for process, not necessarily results. I would have, whether he scored 40 or whether he scored 0, that's not what I'm necessarily looking for. I want to see what's he like on the bench, what's his routine like, the little stuff that you don't get just by watching the broadcast.
Correct. Yeah.
And I'll say, when talking about his frame, like his shoulders,
they're
crazy. And he's gotten stronger. He looks like he's gotten stronger as the year has gone on. And I think that's one of the advantages to playing in the G League Ignite program, where you're focused on basketball. You don't have to worry about going to class.
Yeah.
And look, I didn't play D1 high level D1 basketball. I don't know how many of these guys are taking real classes or not, and at Duke and whatnot. But there's different distractions. I'll say when you're on a big campus, right? Even just going to girls and stuff, like
tons of distractions. Tons.
Yeah, so that's one of you could tell like these guys are working on their frames. I think all those guys, Beauchamp, Dyson Daniels, like all these guys look like they've made big strides as basketball players. One thing I want to ask you about his shooting, like it was a very specific thing that I'm wondering, and it's a big trend. A lot of the kids shoot like this nowadays. They got that one motion shot, right? Like, and I feel like this is a great shot for like in the gym with the trainer working, no defenders. But I feel like it's a little harder to do that thing where you got to kind of alter your shot because a guy's closing out. You got to move now you can't just do the balls same motion every time. You got to adjust. I feel like it's a little harder to do that. I feel like adjusting, in high school, one, he's gonna be taller than most of the kids he's playing against. He's just more athletic. He's got the speed advantage at the high school level. Like you said, now NBA level guys are closing out. They're up on top. They're way longer than you'd expect. And I feel like those one motion shots, sometimes it lends itself to, I guess, the ball landing a little short. I feel like the release doesn't always get as high up. I feel like Tyrese Maxey, this was something that he had coming into the league, which is why I think people struggled with him as a scorer. I'll say I had him top 10 coming into that draft, and I think it's proven that it's something you can adjust to when you get to the NBA. Is there anything to that? You think he's got to adjust his mechanics at all when he gets to the league?
I just think he needs to just adjust to the actual game. Like I think he's good enough to just, once you get a couple games under your belt, the film study kicks in, and the practicing against the other, great players, you start picking up little tricks of the trade, right? And start figuring out, okay, this is how I get off this ball screen here. This is how I get open. This is how I get my shot off against this defender, because the NBA is really like, and I had this conversation with Trey when he was going into the NBA. I said, look, it's almost like you're a pitcher in baseball, and you're going to get on the mound and you got to face every hitter first before you start noticing, what guys swing at certain pitches. It's the same thing with basketball. Like once you run the gauntlet once or twice, you start saying, okay, when I play against Kyle Kuzma, this is the way he defends me. Right. When I play against Jimmy Butler, this is the way he defends me.
Good luck.
So it's like you start figuring out the guys you're playing against and how they move for that to make things happen. So to answer your question, he will adjust. Just got to run the gauntlet a couple of times. You got to get around the racetrack a few times to figure it out. Okay, this is not going to work against Jimmy Butler, or I can't drive going right against Bam Adebayo on that because he always gets that ball. Like you start figuring guys out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're spot on, and I think he's shown that he's learning that as the season's gone on, and that's why if you look at the game log for the last 5 or so games, you're starting to see more of the player that I think people expected coming into the season. Now, I know you got to get out of here, so but before you do, I do want to talk about your book, The Evolution's being televised. So, first of all, I'm a big art guy. The art looks fantastic. So,
thank you.
Big ups on that and whoever you worked with as the illustrator. And if it was you, man, you got,
It wasn't me.
Yeah, I know.
I'm not that gifted, brother. Look.
What was the reason that you decided you wanted to write a book?
Man, one thing about the artwork before we get into it, that actual thumbprint on the cover, that's actually my thumbprint.
Let's go.
So
love that.
I gave it to my graphic guy. I had to go put my thumb on the print, and then I had to scan it, send it to him. So that's actually my thumbprint. So that's not a generic print. So I just think that's symbolic with the book.
It's you.
That's my actual fingerprint. But I'm a communications major. I'm a liberal arts graduate, so I've always been a writer by trade from a kid. Like I've always loved to read books. I've always loved to write. So this is something that has always been in me from day one. Even just writing, you guys know that when you write evaluations, you're writing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You write 50 evaluations. That's a book.
Yeah. Hey, you're talking to somebody who launched his own magazine here, so
we're writers by trade, right? Like, so for me to write a book, it was something that I've always wanted to do. It's a hell of a process.
I was going to ask you about that.
Oh my God, it's a hell of a process. You have to be very, very disciplined. You got to know how to stay on subject matter and not drift. There's a lot to it, and for me, I started really thinking about writing a book right around 2011. And that was right when Steph Curry started to really kind of like ascend, right?
Yeah.
And I told myself, I got to wait a little longer to write this book because I had to allow evolution to run its course. So so if I would have released this book in 2012, it wouldn't have been the right time.
Too early.
It's too early, right?
Yeah.
So I've been sitting on this idea literally for, 2022 now? So
10 years.
I sat on this idea for 10 years. So this is not something I just woke up out of the bed one day and was like, I'm going to just write a book. Like I actually literally had to watch evolution run its course and kind of chronicle the evolution as it's running its course and then turn it into a book.
Look, man, writing in and of itself, even if you're just writing an article for a blog post, is grueling. So to put that to as many pages as it takes to fill a book,
oh man,
like you said, you got to be disciplined for that. Tell people about the concept of the book outside of just it being about evolution, because this is something that you've been at the forefront of, in this space.
Yeah, absolutely. So the book holds a lot of hidden messages. So this is why this book is going to be really fun for readers, because I leave you hidden messages throughout the book. And then it's one of those books where you're going to text me or tweet me like, I just caught that in this chapter, But the book basically talks about, obviously the position metric is the main is the main theme of it all, because when we look at basketball as a whole, there's no way that we can say that the game of basketball only has 5 positions. It's just we're past that.
Yeah.
We're just past that.
Mm-hmm.
So I tell these never heard before stories about players that fit these position metrics. And I also tell my story in unison with the book at the same time. So I identify myself. I talk about how I was pigeonholed into another slot that I didn't fit, and how me trying to appease you guys, you evaluators, who slotted me as a position that I actually wasn't, and it actually cost me a lot of my career. And I talk about how it has hurt a lot of other guys' careers because we've been so conditioned to only slot players in 5 positions. How many times have you guys seen dudes argue in a barbershop about Steph Curry being better than Magic Johnson?
Yeah. You go to any barbershop in the country, you're going to find some variation of that conversation with whether it's Magic and Steph or whoever. It's some variation of that.
And it's like I've sat back and watched that, and I've collected the data, and I've been able to kind of rearrange the legacies of guys that have been lost in those arguments. And I talk about the evolution of the world, how we've went from, look how we're talking now. This is evolution.
Right.
So we couldn't do this 30 years ago.
No.
So I talk about the evolution of the world as well. It's not just sports. I'm talking about how the cell phone was created, how TVs, I grew up with TVs being black and white. Like I'm the perfect age because I have literally grown up with evolution. I was born in 78. So I grew up when TVs were black and white, and then they went to color. And then we had the big fat back TVs, and then they went to flat screens, and then they went to HD, and now we're at 4K, right? Like I've grown up with evolution. Yeah. The 3-point line started in 1979. Like, so I grew up with the 3-point line, which has evolved the game with Steph Curry, who has revolutionized the 3-point line, which I grew up with. So the book has a lot of hidden deep meanings that guys like yourselves are going to really love it, because it's really digging into the anatomy of the game, and it's digging into the anatomy of the player. So it's like an ancestry.com of sports.
You're right.
Like it's really deep, man. It's such a fun book.
I mean, you look at a team like the Raptors, who eventually are going to have 5 guys on the floor that are 6'8", 6'9". Yeah. 10 years, 15 years ago, they get labeled as tweeners, and half those guys probably don't get drafted until the 2nd round or whatever. And now all anybody wants are tweeners, right? Like, so it's funny how quickly things do evolve in the NBA, how quickly things do change. And I mean, I think that not only are players I think players are still going to be misevaluated for years. I think, you might be early still. With the book, to be honest.
No, I think I may be a little early, but I do think that this positions metric in this book will solve there's a lot of gray area, right?
Yeah.
I talked about the word tweener in the book, and I use the word tweener. That's really a bad word. It's really a bad word in the sports world. Like, nobody wants to be called that.
No,
I don't want to be
between
called
two things that you're stuck between 2 things that people
don't
want, and you're not that. Like, that's what they used it as.
Yeah, it's like the Bermuda Triangle, right? Like, you don't want to get lost in that, right? So the word I address the word tweener in my book as how evaluators use that, but it's a negative word. So Draymond Green was called the tweener.
Yep.
Right. But he was really a hybrid post. But since we didn't know what his position was, right? So we just gave him a bad name. Well, he's a tweener. Draymond hates to be called that, by the way.
Well, I won't call him that, so don't worry. I know better not to make him upset if
Yeah,
I
he's
ever
kind of the
have a
wrong dude.
conversation.
Yeah, he's kind of the wrong dude to have that kind of a conversation.
Yeah.
Right.
Before I let you get out of here, do you think there are any prospects in this class that are being mislabeled and it's hurting who they are as players?
Wow, that's a great question. I have to really.
Yeah, I'm putting you on the spot here.
Yeah, you are. I'm gonna think of yes. Like, let's just take Chet Holmgren, right? Like,
yeah,
like they call him a power forward. He's not a power forward. He's a hybrid post.
Not a lot of power coming from Chet.
There's nothing power about him, right? But they're called. You see some things that says power forward, right?
Yeah.
And then you see one that says he's a small forward. But again, it's the conditioning of
he's also not small, right?
We only have five, nothing small. We only have 5 choices to put him in, right? So we're just throwing him in slots that don't fit him.
Yeah.
But he can fit in 2 slots. He can be a stretch big or a hybrid post. He's one of those, but he's not a power forward and he's not a small forward, right?
No.
So he would fit. He fits as a hybrid post in my metric.
Interesting. Yeah. Because traditionally people are going to label him as a kind of a center too. And I don't know if that's fair to the way he plays either.
None of the 5. He doesn't fit none of the 5 positions.
Can I just say one thing before we let Rashad go? I just want to say, Rashad, like when I came upon the positions that you created, it was so ingenious to me because what have we seen in like the last 5 to 8 years, right? In the NBA, because of exactly what you're talking about, because people and analysts could not exactly label these players within those 5 positions, they started creating this new term where they're calling players or calling the league like positionless basketball. Right. And saying, it's because we don't know what Draymond is and he can do all these different things that we have positionless basketball. And then when I saw your list of different positions, I was like, oh, this is so genius because to just say positionless basketball feels so lazy. Exactly.
Lazy.
And the fact that you created these more detailed, more defined positions for the growing range of players that are in the league. And as the name of your book entails, like evolution, I think it's so smart that you created that because it really does challenge people to think a little bit more. And instead of just saying positionless, you go, okay, there's something like a hybrid post or a hybrid guard or these things. So I just want to say, dude, I'm a huge fan of yours and that you did that. And I think it just takes a lot of creativity and, to be honest, some work for you to create these things. And so I respect it a lot, man.
Well, you guys, I really appreciate that, Albert. But you two both know because you're in that world of evaluating. So you guys know how difficult it is to watch film and be like, okay, you're trying to label the guy, but it's only 5 choices. Like, how do you label a guy with only 5 choices? So I really wanted to help the world of evaluators too. I wanted to make our jobs easier. You're right.
That's awesome.
Like you look at Karl Anthony Towns. He's not a center. He's a stretch big. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's simple.
Right.
Don't call him positionless. He's a stretch big.
Yeah, he's on the floor. He's playing a position.
It's okay. Yeah.
That's right.
Guy like me in my men's league is positionless. I'm on the bench in my men's league because I'm old now. That's positionless.
Man, here's my position in the men's league that I play in. No defense. Like I don't play no defense. Like that's I'm a cherry picker. That's
defense is a young man's game. Defense is a young man's game. I played pickup for a couple hours yesterday. I couldn't walk the next day.
Oh my God.
Being in your mid-30s is not fun. So
yeah.
I will say too, though, it's not just the NBA. I see it all the time at the grassroots level. On Long Island coaching. Half the time you see these kids that, oh, you're the big kid, so you're going to be the center or whatever.
Right.
And it's like, at the grassroots level, there's so many, old school coaches that are still, they've been in the same spot for so long. They don't want to evolve themselves. They want to just do what they've been doing, right? They're comfortable. So it's not just something with the NBA. I think if you're involved at any level, you're seeing how it could negatively affect kids. And look, there's a lot of really talented kids that even if they're not going D1, they could still get themselves money at a D3 school, or a D2 school. And a lot of kids can be affected by this,
I agree. And that's what my book actually covers. Like, it's not, my book is not just for pros. Like, it covers the grassroots all the way up. Like, this book helps parents. This book helps coaches, scouts, evaluators, basketball players. Like, it's one of those books that covers everybody. Like, everybody's going to feel like I can get something out of this book. You know, and that's what it is. I didn't want to make it a one-track book where it only serves one purpose, because then you're just talking to one set of people. I wanted to serve the entire culture of basketball with this book. So that's why it's going to be so accepted. You know, you're going to get pushback from people that just don't like evolution. Look, I had a BlackBerry when iPhone came out, and I was like, I'm not getting an iPhone. I was like the old man that was mad, that didn't want, like, I love my BlackBerry. I'm sticking to this. And then here I am today.
Everybody's
It's me today. So
if you got a BlackBerry now, you're something's wrong.
Evolution is inevitable. Evolution is undefeated. It's inevitable, and we either have to adapt, or we just gonna get left behind. And that's what this book is. You can be bitter and I'm not reading that, or I'm not listening to that. Okay, well, the game is gonna adopt it in the next 3 or 4 years. It's gonna be on. You can still have your BlackBerry in 4 years if you want to. Everybody else will be on FaceTime.
Yeah, I mean, the game's it's evolving now.
It is what it is.
It's evolving now. So look, man, I appreciate you coming on. Tell the people where they can find your book, and then we'll let you get out of here. We appreciate the amount of time you gave us.
No, you guys were awesome. I appreciate it. People can reach me on Twitter at RP3Natural. You can find me on Instagram, Rashad Philips 2319, and you can pre-order my book. The Evolution is being televised at my website, sportstalk2319.com. The orders are coming in left and right. And I just can't wait to share this book with everybody. It's just going to be such an amazing read for you guys. The artwork, the amount of work that that I've put into it is, I mean, I really did all of my research when I wrote this book.
Well, I'm excited to read it. If you decided that you wanted to make some prints to sell of some of the artwork in the book, I wouldn't hate that. So a little idea for you.
I will. I'll have my artist. He's one of the best. He's definitely going to be selling some prints, because he has the art is dope. That's nothing. I have nothing to do with that. That's all him. I actually told him what kind of pictures I wanted. I said I want Trae Young with the shiver pose. Like, I picked the poses, but I have nothing to do with the drawings. Like, that's all Matt. He's fantastic.
Well, it's dope. You continuously do dope stuff in the space, and you do so and that's valuable. That's very valuable right now with a lot of people that are trying to be other versions of other people. Originality is what we need in this space. And
that's why I love your platform, because you just do your own thing. Like, you just like, I'm just gonna do my thing. Whatever you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. So that's why it was an honor to be on your show. You and Albert, you guys are fantastic dudes. And let's circle back once the book comes out. Once you guys have it in hand, once you guys read it, we're gonna circle back, and I'm sure you guys gonna have all these different things you want to ask me after reading the book.
Absolutely, and we'll book that. You'll be back, and we'll have a real roundtable discussion on it in an in-depth way. I'm looking forward to that. But appreciate you coming on, man. Enjoy March Madness and all. Big game tonight. My guys at Rutgers. So. Appreciate you coming on, man.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Have a good one.
You too.
All right, Albert.
All right.
Look, we didn't finish this Jaden Hardy discussion, y'all. We still have a whole other side of the ball to discuss.
Oh, yeah.
So let's get into it. Talk to me about Jaden Hardy, the defender.
All right, so I was really optimistic, and even offensively, there are a lot of different things that I still wanted to talk about. But no, I get it. We have to do both sides, and I think defensively is where I'm not as in love with him. Is that the best way to put it?
Fair.
Look, the thing is, for me, like, I'm still hoping, because I'm just so, like, infatuated sounds weird, but like I just really like his frame a lot. And I'm hoping he's gonna get better at leveraging his frame and size. And I think he even has decent length. I haven't seen any of his measurables.
He's long.
Right?
He's
Yeah.
reported 6'9" wingspan. When I heard him in an interview say, I think he had a 6'11" wingspan. I'm pretty sure he said that. I don't know if that's true. I think he also said he was close to 6'6", and when I saw him in person, I thought he was like 6'3"-ish. So, I don't know what he's going to measure at, but he does have a great frame and he does have great length. So whether he's 6'3" or 6'5", like he's still going to be able to, I think, guard different spots due to his length and his frame.
So yeah, I mean, like once again, like the frame I do like a lot. It's great to hear that his length, it makes sense, because what I saw on screen, like I was like, oh, okay. The one thing that I did like, to be totally honest, Corey, there wasn't a lot that I liked about him defensively, but the one thing that I did like, I think he's like averaging over a steal per game, and you see it in the games. Like he's trying to get into passing lanes. He's trying to get, a little klepto-y with his hands and try to stick his hands in there for steals and stuff, which I like. I do like. It's just the other stuff wasn't always the most fun to watch. And like, even man, like I don't know if it's like the way that they decided to play. I definitely don't think it's the competition level, but there were some not so pretty moments with him, both on ball and off ball. Was kind of where my evaluation landed, and I was hoping for more, but at the same time, like when I think back to like his AAU stuff, which was like kind of a nightmare train wreck, I guess I was kind of like happy that he was trying to do more with like getting steals and stuff like that, but I think definitely the defensive side of the ball with him left you wanting a lot more.
Yeah. And so he averaged 1.3 steals per game this year. His last 4 games, 4 steals, 1 steal, 3 steal, 3 steal. So that's pretty good. Yeah. Steals are not the end-all be-all metric for what makes a good defender or not. And, he still is prone to doing some of the same things, like you said, with the AAU stuff, where he's like Shad said, he plays defense, cherry picking. Jaden Hardy's too young to be cherry picking, right?
Yeah.
Or he's trying to do that thing where the poke away thing, right? Where he's going to let the guy go by him and just try to use his length to poke away. That stuff works at the high school level sometimes. Didn't even work all the time. Right. It doesn't work at the NBA level, where you need to contain. Like you need to lead your man into the help. Just letting a blow by happen is going to be disastrous against NBA players. Like you can't reach around a guy like Steph Curry or Trae Young or any of the Bradley Beal, Zach LaVine. You can't do that. These guys are way too good as scorers, decision makers to take those chances. So the discipline is where I think he really needs to shore it up, because he has the frame. He's got the frame to be a good defender, and I think there are improvements across the board, but like the NBA is a different beast, because, we talked about the adjusting to the speed of the game from high school going to play in the G League.
Right.
There's another huge jump when you go from the G League to the NBA, and you see how long it took Jalen Green to adjust to that speed. And Jalen Green, in and of himself, is like unbelievably athletic and quick. And I thought that Jalen Green was a much better defender for the Ignite last year than Jalen's been. So that side of the ball is going to be a process for him. And I think when you look at opportunities for him to get on the floor, we said his draft stock is in the 20s, right? Regardless of where any of us may personally have him. And honestly, I'm a little bit confused and I don't know where exactly to put him. I could see him going in the lottery. I could see him falling down to the 20s. Based on where he lands, he may not have the freedom. If he slides, you can't make those mistakes. You're not going to find opportunities to get on the floor, because if you slide, you're going to be on a veteran team who is probably trying to make a playoff push, and that kind of stuff's not going to help. Very few teams are willing to, develop you in real time against NBA level competition when they're trying to win games. So, in order for that to happen, he's going to have to really excel as an offensive player. And I think there's going to be an adjustment there, as we've seen, him struggle with efficiency at times, or most of the time in the G League. Off the ball, that stuff's going to be hard.
Yeah,
because
really hard.
I think it's one of the hardest things to get comfortable with in the NBA is you have to make decisions quickly. And not even quickly, like you have to anticipate the decisions you're going to make. A lot of times you have to know where the ball is going to swing, who it's swinging to, what happens if you see the ball swing from one side of the court to the other, where are you running to versus where are you going if the ball just skips one pass away. Like all of these things, unbelievably hard. I think the defense is ways away for him.
100% agree. And the off-ball stuff, like I love that you just said that, Corey, because I've been thinking about that a lot just on my own, like a freaking weirdo. But I was just thinking like making those rotations, right? And anticipating, knowing when to pinch, like knowing when, like to flash, like knowing the personnel on the other team, like all that stuff seems like such, like I have so much respect for pro basketball players because like even watching in Vegas, watching the college basketball players in a tighter court, like, 3-point line is much tighter. So they're not playing with a lot of space in college basketball. But even then, like watching the defenses make these decisions and rotating quickly, and then like watching the offensive players that are good reacting to that quickly and making the right reads and stuff like that. I'm like, I hate this like misnomer that athletes are like, dude, you have to be really freaking smart to be a really good athlete, especially at that level. And I'm just like watching these guys and I'm like, you guys are so instinctual, but also so smart because you're processing so many things and so many concepts and like all that coaching and everything. And you're putting that all into action. I was like, you guys are freaking awesome. But anyway, going back to Hardy, I think with his off ball stuff, like I'm with you, man. I think part of it is effort. Part of it is concentration. Part of it is, I don't know. Does he have a little diva in him? Like he thinks he's like the main guy on offense. So he kind of takes a little break and breather on defense at times. I don't want to accuse him of that, but once again, like I think he's got to grow. And I don't think it's something that he's going to be bad at. Like, I just think it's something he needs to work on and get better. And especially if he wants to be a really, really great NBA player, I think it's fair to say he's got to improve on that end.
It's more than fair, and it's a necessity. It's a necessity because more and more, even with big time scorers, like in this day and age, these guys are being held accountable for what they bring on both sides of the floor. You have to be a two-way player to be one of the elite players in this league, and I don't know if Jaden Hardy is going to be an elite player in this league. I would probably bet against that, but I think that he needs to at least get to the point where he's going to be and project to be an adequate defender.
Correct.
Especially, because there are questions about his offensive game. Where do you have a landing spot for him that you think would really maximize your return on investment? Because he has such a wide gap and range of teams that he could possibly go to, given where his draft stock is, that I think like we're not just looking at the teams at the top of the draft. You might be looking at some of the better teams too.
Wow, that's actually a really tough question. Okay, can I throw this one at you and see what you think? Because
absolutely.
Like even offensively, I know we had Rashad on and we talked about the shooting, but for me, like when I was watching him play, like his mid-range pull-up game, like I like that he likes to go with it a lot, but he shoots on the way down a lot on his mid-range jumper and he misses short a lot. Another thing that I noticed with him, when he attacks the basket on drives, he does not protect the ball well at all. This guy gets stripped attacking the rim a lot. Yes. I think he needs to go to the He needs to go to the Stephon Marbury school of locking up the ball with two hands when you attack the rim.
Style.
Right, because he's getting stripped a lot. With that in mind, though, if we consider the role that you and Rashad mentioned as like a secondary guy who can do a little with the ball in his hands and is growing in that area of the game. And for me, I'm still very optimistic that he can improve his handle and improve the decision making and the passing and stuff like that. Now, of course, he doesn't have a lot of shake, and that's something I did want to say to kind of correct myself with the whole Hibachi Agent Zero comp. What do you like? I feel like Memphis is a good place for him to be, where if he's playing off of Ja as a shooter, number one, and then number two as a secondary creator, because I kind of feel like it would be nice if the Grizzlies had another creator, like not to say that the other guys on their team can't create, but like a little bit more advanced. And I think
Right.
Hardy is that, where Hardy
Tough
isn't
shot making.
correct. You don't want Hardy to be your number one option, but if he's your number two and can eventually grow into like a 1B option on your team, that's really exciting.
Yeah.
So I was thinking Memphis, and if he can develop, maybe in his rookie year, he's kind of coming off the bench, developing, dropping down to the G League once in a while, whatever. And then in his sophomore year, takes a jump, third year, takes another jump. By the time John is in his prime, Hardy might be ready to be his running mate. So that's kind of where my head went.
I like Memphis, and they have multiple picks in this draft. They have 3 picks, so even if they don't take him at 11 and he slides a little bit, maybe they package 24 and 29 to move up and get him, take a swing on him, similar to what they did with Zaire Williams last year. Right. It's clear, even though historically they take a lot of these older guys who kind of are going to be good players. They swung and for Zaire last year because they're at a point where they can take those chances. So I think Memphis could be fun. I think Dallas would be good. Similarly to, Luka just draws so much attention that, it's kind of he'd be in that Tim Hardaway Jr. role early on. And, maybe he's got a little bit more potential to kind of maximize beyond what Tim Hardaway Jr. became, but Tim Hardaway Jr. made a lot of money as a instant offense scorer. So I don't know if that's necessarily a bad outcome for him either. And, the role could be fairly similar to Buddy Hield, even though I think Buddy Hield is a little bit better at like running off screens and he's a little smoother in that regard. But I think one of these spots that he's not going to have that pressure. I think that's where you're going to really maximize your ROI. All right. It's time for the world's favorite segment. Albert, it's time to sell me this pen on Jaden Hardy.
Bic, Apple, Pilot, whoever, you guys need to sponsor us. The hell is going on? Come on, guys.
Vape pens, smart. Even a vape pen. Like I don't know, something.
Exactly. Vape pens. Hit us up, dude. Whatever it is. But here we go. I'm going to sell you this pen. Jaden Hardy is a guy, as I mentioned, is a guy that I just continue to be irrationally high on. And this is the crazy thing is this is our second pod on him. We did him preseason, and at that time he was number 1 on both of our boards.
We made a boner joke out of it.
We did. And I just can't shake this feeling that I think the kid is going to be a really, really good basketball player. And look, I get that there are limitations, but if I'm selling you this pen, guys, this guy has range. If you watch his legs, the guy has strong and he has kind of bouncy legs. Like when you see him take a step back, his step back is really quick, and it's weird to describe it this way. He kind of has a perky step back. It's just like quick little step back that looks good, and I enjoy it a lot. And I think the shooting's gonna he can shoot from anywhere, and I think the mid-range game is only gonna get better. I think he leans back a little bit, he shoots on the way down a little bit in the mid-range game, but I like that it's a part of his arsenal. It's something that he enjoys doing. And when we look at the elite scorers in the NBA, they all have a mid-range game, and I think Hardy's gonna be there with them with insane range. Even now, like him attacking the rim, he does create a lot of turnovers, doesn't protect the ball well. I would like him to be, a little bit more efficient, draw more fouls, but it's there. Like he's willing to go to the rim. He has a great frame. So when you start to put these things together, and he's a developing playmaker, passer as well, there's a lot of potential there that I think he'll look really different on the NBA level, because I really do think he was asked to do a lot of things that he's just not comfortable to do with doing in the G League. And so once he's put in a role where he's able to shine a little bit more and show off some of the stuff that he's actually good at, and given more time to develop in his weaknesses without having like the burden and responsibility to be the number 1 guy, we could be talking about a really, really good NBA player. So for me, that's the reason why I can't move him out of my top 10, and I continue to be really, really high on him.
I think you did a good job selling us on Jaden Hardy, and I think I really needed this discussion personally, because I've been wavering on him a little bit. He was the number 1 guy on my board, and when we were doing our big boards for No Ceilings, for our composite board that we just put on the site, I kept going, all right, I want to move him up. I want to get him back down to this range that I feel like, he's more comfortable at. I don't want this 1 year to be the only, where he struggled or whatever, even though he's shown progressions to, drop him so far. I don't want to overreact. And then I look at some of the players I had ahead of him and I'm like, but I really like this player too. And that's the struggle, because a lot of guys have shown things that we weren't expecting. So I think Hardy's going to be one of the tougher evals that I've had. And I think at the end of the day, it comes down to expectation for him. And if coming into the year where I thought he was like this Dame Lillard, Jason Tatum hybrid, where I thought he was going to be this elite scorer, obviously that isn't, I don't hold that belief anymore, but I do think he can be Buddy Hield, and I think there's value to that. And if you look at Buddy Hield's draft, regardless of what spot he was drafted at, there probably is not going to be 14 guys better than him,
right?
Looking back, right, in the class. And that's how I approach a lot of my thought process. It's why I was high on Cam Thomas, Josh Christopher last year. It's why I'm high on Ryan Rollins from Toledo this year, because I think that like there are easily identifiable roles for guys who play like that. And I think a lot of times they tend to hit more than I think we think. So Hardy's like, in that upper echelon group of as far as talent goes. So why am I having a hard time with Hardy when with Cam and Josh Christopher last year I was so certain, and that unease that I have in my stomach when I'm making his evaluation is what I'm struggling with, because so much of it is like outside of, it's not necessarily even the numbers. A lot of it is just eye test stuff, but I also see the positives, and it's what makes it so confusing for me. So Hardy's going to be a guy that I'm going to wrestle with, I think, for the next, almost three months and a week until draft night, to really get a handle on him. I'm gonna have to watch his games, I think, like 10 times each to really figure out how I truly feel about him. Because as I wrote for my article earlier in this year at No Ceilings, similar to the Saved by the Bell, probably the most popular episode they've ever done, I'm so excited, I'm so scared, I don't know how to feel. I'm Jesse Spano in regards to Jaden Hardy.
Are we showing our age here with these types of references?
Nah, Saved by the Bell is a classic. I think that Saved by the Bell has to just be a class. I mean, it's on Netflix, Hulu. I think
that's true.
Every generation is going to have a Saved by the Bell moment.
Mm-hmm.
They did the remake. They did the remake on Peacock, so maybe there's a little resurgence. I think I watched 2 episodes. I gotta finish that. It was fine. Tell the people where they can find you.
You can find me at Alberto Gim on Twitter, also at GTGNBA. Do want to say it was awesome having Rashad on.
Yes.
I think it's the guy's a really interesting mind. The way that he thinks about basketball, the way that he thinks about life seems to be, not of, he's not like a cookie cutter type of guy. And I can really respect that. Like, I think at Corey, you're the same. Like, you guys are really creative people. And I really respect people who can think outside the box and challenge the norm. So it was really cool to have him on and hear him talk about Hardy and stuff, and the perspective that he gave us as, Hardy as a professional player and not a college player, which was really cool. But you can find me at No Ceilings NBA. I haven't written in a while. I think I've last wrote like beginning of February, but I should be writing soon again. I think I've just been so overwhelmed with work and doing pods and stuff like that. But I am working on something that should be fun. I'm going to wait a little bit, because I realize I want to wait till a little bit after, because it doesn't really make sense right now timing wise. But I'll be back, guys. I want to write again. So I'll be doing that soon.
You heard it here first. He'll be back with a mystery fun thing. You can find me at Corey Tulaba on Twitter, NBA Draft Dude on YouTube, written work at No Ceilings NBA. Tomorrow, or if you're listening to this, probably today, I'm releasing an article on Jan Montero, the overtime elite, who is another guy similar to Hardy, who just kind of mysterious and needed to dive deeper into his film to get a feel for him. We just released both a updated top 60 big board and a first round mock at No Ceilings this week. So make sure to check those out. for the squad's rankings. And with March Madness, I mean, we're pumping stuff out literally every day. I mean, you gotta follow No Ceilings NBA on Twitter, because we're doing such fun stuff. On Selection Sunday, we did a live stream with the entire crew. So get on board the No Ceilings train, because it's going to keep rolling, and the momentum's picking up faster and faster as we get closer to draft night. It's going to be a lot of fun stuff in store. Appreciate you guys for rocking with us. Throw us a rating if you're so inclined and you haven't done that yet. You can do it on Spotify and Apple. But we appreciate everybody listening and to our nonsense for as long as you have. You guys are the best, and we'll be back next week. Peace.
Peace.